Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Di, and today I'm sharing with you my end of month reading reflections. This is basically my end of month wrap up where I give you some of my reading stats. I tell you what my highest and lowest rated reads of the month were, give you a little bit of a recap of my thoughts, and that's pretty much it. In June, I participated in the Manga Pride Readathon, so I was able to get through quite a few things, which I'm very happy with the amount of things that I read for the readathon, as well as all of the things that I read in general. I read quite a few things digitally through my library's Hoopla availability, so that was great as well. And so, yeah, there's quite a few things to talk about today, so let's get into me telling you all of the titles that I read throughout the month. I won't be giving you reviews on all of these during this video, but if you're interested in hearing about my thoughts on any of the titles I will be sharing with you in just a moment, you can check out the videos down in the description box below. If they're in Adizes 19 Diaries, you can go to the video and open the description box, and in the description box it'll tell you what titles I am talking about in that particular video. So if you're only interested in certain titles, that's the way you'll be able to find them. And so yeah, let's just get this started because there's quite a bit to get through today. So in a semi-particular order, we'll go from last thing read to first, I think. I'm going to try anyway. So, Demons are a ghoul's best friend. This is the second book in the Ghost Hunters mystery series by Victoria Laurie. I have Cherry Magic, volumes 1 through 4. This is by Yu Toyota, published by Square Enix Manga, rated mature. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yuri is My Job, Volume 1 by Mimon. This is published by Kodansha, rated teen. This was a Monochrome Manga Club selection. Sotus, Volume 1, art by Kay, original story by Bittersweet. This is published by Yen Press, rated older teen. This is also a Monochrome Manga Club selection. Fullmetal Alchemist 3-in-1 edition. And this is volumes 1, 2, and 3 by Hiromu Arakawa, published by Viz, rated teen. This is a Monochrome Manga Club series read. And Erased, volume 5 by Kei Sanbei. This is published by Yen Press, rated teen. This was also a Monochrome Manga Club series read. I read The Snake Who Loved a Sparrow. This is by Enna Natsu, published by Tokyo Pop, I would say rated mature. I read The Flower That Seems to Truly Dance. This is by Saki Tsukihara, published by Tokyo Pop, also rated mature. I read Glass Syndrome, which is by Eiko Aiki, published by Tokyo Pop, rated mature. It might be older teen, but I am not sure because I can't actually see the back of the flap. There is sexual content in there, but it's pretty vague. So take that with a grain of salt. I read The Pet Detective Agency by Noji. This one is published by Denpa. I would say this one, probably older teen. But again, I don't have the actual flap to let me know. And I've never read a title by Denpa before, so I don't know if they actually put age ratings on the back of their titles. But I did read that one off the Hoopla app as well. I read Replay, which was by Saki Tsukihara. This one is published by Tokyo Pop, I would say rated mature. I read Would You Like to Be a Family by Koyama, also by Tokyo Pop, published by Tokyo Pop. This one I would say probably rated mature, but could be high older teen. Again, I don't have the flap to be able to tell you for sure, so make sure you research that before reading if you are under 18 years old. I read Striking Distance, which was the first of the Fence novels. This one is done by Sarah Rees Brennan. I read The Cardigans, which was the first book in the Criminal Intention series by Cole McCade. I buddy read Platinum Blood with my friend Bizarre Individual, who is also one of the hosts of the Manga Pride Readathon. This one is published by Tokyo Pop, rated mature, and is by More Ichigaya. I read Futari Escape, Volume 1 by Shoichi Taguchi. This one's published by 7 Seas, rated teen. I read The Summer You Were There, Volume 1 by Yuama, published by 7 Seas, rated teen. I read Last Gender, Volume 1, When We Are Nameless. This one is by Rei Taki, published by Kodansha, rated 18 plus or mature. I read The Titan's Bride, Volume 1, story and art by ITKZ, published by 7 Seas, rated mature. I read 10 Count, Volumes 1 and 2. This is by Rihito Takarai, published by Sublime, rated mature. I read Date Me, Bryson Keller by Kevin Van Wy. I read 7 Days, Monday through Sunday, from Venio Tachibana, art by Rihito Takarai, published by Sublime, rated teen. I read Our Dining Table by Mito Ori, published by 7 Seas, rated teen. I read I Want to Be a Wall, Volume 2 by Honami Shirono, published by Yen Press, rated older teen. And I read Our Not So Lonely Planet Travel Guide, Volume 2 by Monet Sorai. This one is published by Tokyo Pop, rated teen. So I did get quite a few things read. Not everything I planned on reading, if I'm honest, because I did throughout the month say, oh, I should pull that out to read. Oh, I should pull that out to read. And even like towards the beginning of the month, I had a couple titles set aside that I wanted to read, and I didn't get to those either. But I do still have interest in reading them, so you may see me read more BL and GL titles in July. So yeah, I am very, very happy with the amount of things that I've read. And for the most part, what I read was pretty good. I would probably read most of everything that I've read again, with a few exceptions. So with that, let's get into June's stats. So in June, I read 30 things. So that's basically one thing a day. Now keep in mind, that includes manga, but there were also some novels in there. So I think I did a pretty good job, if I do say so myself. It was one of my better reading months. I didn't have any times where I was like, oh, I don't know what I want to read. There was always something that I wanted to read. And even if I didn't know before I had started the thing I was reading, like to know what I wanted to read next, by the time I was done reading what I was reading, I knew what I wanted to read next. So that was really great as well. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that my library's Hoopla offerings, as far as the Tokyo Pop selection, is very large, and so that really helped. And so yeah, very, very happy with the number, and that's up from 25 things in the month of May. So of the 30 things that I read in June, 2 of them were 5-star reads, 19 of them were 4-star reads, 1 of them was a 3.5-star read, and 8 of them were a 3-star read. So overall, for a majority of what I read, they were 4-star reads, which means that I would reread that title again in the future. So I think that's pretty good. Now, as far as number of pages read, that number is actually down from May. So I read 6,708 pages in June, which is down from 6,899 pages in May. I do have to put a little bit of a caveat here because I am in the middle of a pretty large book. This book is over 700 pages, and I, at this point, am about 60% done with it. So I've read a couple hundred pages in that, but I'm not counting that in the month's totals because I didn't finish the book. So that will just be added on to July's page count, provided I finish it in July. And so, yes, even though the total number is down, I think I did read more pages in June than I did in May, if you add those pages on and for the book that I am in the middle of. So I'm not too concerned about that number. I feel like I read a lot in the month of June, and I read a lot of things that I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's not going to bother me that the number is reflecting less. I definitely feel like I had a better time with my reading over the last 2 months than I have for most of, I would say, the rest of this year, if not the last year in total. So, yeah, there's that. Of the 30 things I read, 25 of the titles were manga, which is up from 18 volumes in the month of May. I read 5 novels, which remained the same from the month of May. So I did continue to read novels during the month of June. Also, those 5 novels that I read all had some type of LGBTQIA plus rep in it. Actually, though, I think all of them were male. I am pretty sure all of them were male. I do really need to expand my female type reading, as well as my girls love reading as well. I've noticed that my shelves have mostly BL titles, but I think that's because I see mostly BL titles being picked up in like manga halls, and of my friends, they mostly read BL, and there's not a lot of GL that I see. So I really need to like research more into some GL titles that I might be interested in and things like that. So yes, got off on a little tangent there. And then of the 30 things, 5 of them were audiobooks, and I will tell you that all 5 of the novels I read were the 5 audiobooks. So I ear-read those 5 books. And I would say the audiobooks were pretty good. I enjoyed most of them. So, yeah. So of the 30 things I read, 2 of them were audiobooks that I had borrowed from the library. 3 of them were audiobooks I owned. 21 of the things I read in the month were things that I owned. And 7 of the things I read in the month of June were rereads, which is kind of a rare thing for me nowadays. It was interesting because I had to reread certain volumes in order to continue with series, because I hadn't kept up with the series throughout the last year, or I just couldn't remember like what the first volume was about. Like, for example, our Not So Lonely Planet travel guide, I did not reread the first volume for this series because I could still remember it. And with this story, it really didn't have like an underlying storyline that I needed to remember what had happened, because they're traveling. So they're traveling to all of these different places, and it's just them kind of enjoying their adventures. There's not anything in the plot where I'm like, oh, I really need to remember what happened there in order for me to continue, because otherwise I'm going to be lost. I didn't feel that at all without rereading the first book in this series. Another example of that was I Want to Be a Wall. And though it's been a really long time that I read the first volume in this series, I still remembered quite vividly what had happened in the first volume. So I didn't feel like I needed to reread this one. And so I didn't. And I didn't feel confused at all when I picked up the second volume of this one. However, a good example of me rereading something because it was a long time and I couldn't quite remember what happened was 10 Count. So I read 10 Count last year for the Manga Pride Readathon, and I wanted to continue to volume 2, but I couldn't quite remember what happened in volume 1, so I felt like I really had to reread this one. So I did do that. And so that's one of the examples of why I reread something during the month. The other example would be because I just really, really enjoyed it. And so I think we'll go into my highest and lowest rated reads of the month and just give you a little bit of a snippet into my thoughts on these. Like I said, if you're interested in more of my thoughts on these titles, you can check out the videos that are linked down in the description box below. So my 2 5-star reads for the month were part of the rereads that I did, and that was Our Dining Table by Mito Ori. This one is a really, really sweet story about a man who has had a really tough family life, and even his co-workers don't really enjoy him because it's really hard to have a meal with him. He doesn't converse a lot. He's not very conversational, and they feel like he makes eating unenjoyable because he just won't socialize. And so he is taken to eating alone at a nearby park. And sometimes he'll buy food, sometimes he'll make food. On this particular day where we see him, he has made some onigiri, or rice balls. And he's in a park getting ready to enjoy his lunch when he happens upon a little boy. And this little boy seems to be lost, and he's very hungry, so he decides to share his onigiri with the little boy. And the little boy is so amazed with the onigiri that this guy has made, and he's like, "What's your secret? Can you teach my older brother how to do this? His don't taste like this." When the older brother comes and finds them, the little boy keeps gushing about how good this rice ball is, and eventually they invite this man to come to their home and teach them how to make onigiri. And their relationship kind of blossoms from there. And this is just a really, really sweet story. I loved it the first time I read it. It does not disappoint on reread. My feelings have not changed on this, and I absolutely love this one. So that is one of the rereads I did. And the other 5-star read was also a reread, and that is 7 Days, Monday through Sunday, story by Venio Tachibana and art by Rihito Takarai. So this is a story about a guy who dates for a week. What does it say? He is known for being a week-long lover. So basically, he is available to ask out on the first day of the week, which is Monday, in this case. And then usually by Sunday, he dumps them. And so one day, one of his teammates from the archery club was around, just kind of waiting for a pizza to be delivered for lunch at school, and jokingly asks him out, because there's no rule that says a man or a boy can't ask him out. And so he just kind of does it as a joke. He doesn't think anything of it, and then realizes that this guy is taking it seriously, and they start dating throughout the week. And this kind of story kind of follows them day by day, the dates and things that they go on, the time they spend together, and how their relationship and feelings start to blossom during this time frame, and how each of them kind of start to realize their time is running short and what's going to happen next type thing. I absolutely loved this one the first time I read it. It was just as good the second time I read it. And in fact, it inspired me to read something controversial because of it. So one of the books that I did read that is going to be in the list of lowest reads of the month was Date Me Bryson Keller by Kevin Van Wy. Yes, Date Me Bryson Keller is what I would consider a retelling of 7 Days, Monday through Sunday by Venio Tachibana and Rihito Takarai. So I had found out about Date Me Bryson Keller right around the time that I had finished reading 7 Days the first time. I had found out about this because there was this big controversy about people calling plagiarism. And basically, this story, Date Me Bryson Keller, is about a guy who dates someone for a week and then dumps them at the end of the week. So the main plot of Date Me Bryson Keller is the same, but I will say there are differences. Their dates, for the most part, are different. There is one date that could be construed as being similar, but I would consider this a retelling of 7 Days. Now, I go through a very long conversation about my feelings on if I think there should have been a retelling done of the story within the time frame that 7 Days has been out, and other things like that in one of the videos linked down in the description box below. So if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on both of these books, definitely check out that video. Another one of my 3-star reads was Volume 1 of Futari Escape by Shuichi Taguchi. So this is what I believe is supposed to be a girl's love story about these two characters on the cover. Basically, one of them is a mangaka and the other one is unemployed. And we basically get to see them like just live their lives. They're just glimpses into their lives together. To me, it wasn't clear if they were together or not. It just seemed like they were really good friends. And for me, this first volume wasn't compelling enough to make me want to read more of this series. So I did decide to DNF this series. I was happy just visiting with these two people for the amount of time that this volume contained. I didn't feel connected to any of the characters at all. The unemployed character kind of got on my nerves because it kind of gave the feeling like she was mooching off the other one. And I just couldn't see them together as a couple at all in here. It just seemed like they were really good friends, and that's all I really needed. And so, yeah, I won't be continuing with this one, unfortunately. Again, more of my thoughts on that one in one of the videos down in the description box below. Another one of my 3-star reads was Platinum Blood by Mor Ichigaya. Like I said, I did buddy read this one with my friend Bizarre Individual, who was one of the hosts of the Manga Pride Readathon. This particular one follows a vampire and a priest. It is a BL, or boys love. Basically, in this one, the priest has raised this vampire from childhood, and like I said, it is a BL. So there's that. This one is rated mature, so there is sexual content. I had a few issues with this one, but I'll let you go and check out my thoughts on that one if you're interested. One of the things that I had an issue with was the fact that the priest did raise the vampire, so it kind of felt like adoptive incest. And yeah, from that, it just kind of brought on a bunch of questions. If I looked at it as the priest didn't raise the vampire, there was a point in the story where something comes up where the priest needs to make a decision on something. And I thought that one was a little bit sad how the outcome of that scenario went. But I understood it. I understood the reasons for it. But I just can't get that whole the priest raised the vampire thing out of my head. And there was a little bit of confusion with how the chapters were laid out as well. So that's a short version of my thoughts on that one. But again, one of the videos in the description box will give you my full thoughts on that volume. My next 3-star read was Yuri Is My Job Volume 1 by Mimon. So this follows a girl who is very cute and very likable. Everybody loves her. Everybody thinks she's cute. And then one day she slips down a flight of stairs and runs into a girl who is a cafe manager. And this cafe is just starting to get off the ground. And so our character says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And it turns out that she has injured this cafe manager to the point where the cafe manager can't work anymore and really needs to work because she's trying to get this cafe off the ground. And so she, I want to say, coerces. If you've read this volume, you kind of know what I mean, I think. But she basically tells her, "Look, you need to work in my place." And so without any training or anything, they put her in a uniform and send her out onto the floor. And this cafe is themed. It's themed after a girls' private school. And so the customers there come for the experience of being served by these girls. And so because our main character doesn't have any training or anything like that, she gets, into situations where she makes mistakes or she says things she's not supposed to say. And she also finds that her coworkers don't like her very much, which is something really new for her. And so this story kind of follows her kind of trying to find her bearings with this job, trying to find out why, for the first time in her life, there are people who don't like her, and trying to fix that, remedy that situation. So I have a big problem with this series, with the fact that there is drama created from the fact that she was sent out to do this job without any training and then gets reprimanded for making mistakes. And this happened several times in this volume, and it just got on my nerves. So at this point, I'm not sure that I want to continue the series. I think I do have one more volume, but yeah. I didn't enjoy all of the drama that felt to me was very unnecessary. And so you can check out my thoughts on this one in the Monochrome Manga Club series First Impressions video, which is also linked down in the description box below. Another of my 3-star reads was Striking Distance, which is the first of the Fence novels by Sarah Rees Brennan. So this is a novelization set in the world of the Fence comics, which I have not read. So basically we're following these 4 guys who are on this high school fencing team, and they like board at the school, and we just kind of follow a set of boys. Two of the boys are kind of trying to become friends, I would say. They're roommates. They're on the fencing team together, but they kind of don't get along. And so there's one storyline where it's these 2 guys who are in like a situation, and they kind of work together to solve it, kind of. And then the other 2 guys are also roommates, but they've been friends since childhood. They've gone through several tough things together, and one of them has crushed on the other for quite a long time. But he's kind of a playboy, this guy. And so when his friend first starts to date, he kind of gets jealous. I know this pair's name. This pair is Harvard and Aiden. And this was the pair that I was most interested in throughout this storyline. But it's my understanding that the Fence comics follow the other pair. So I'm not quite sure, like, how I'm going to feel now about reading the comics, even though I do want to read the comics, because I really enjoyed the relationship between Aiden and Harvard. And so with Aiden and Harvard, they've kind of been friends throughout their whole lives. From when they were young. They've gone through tough things together, like one of their parents being in the hospital and almost dying. And they've just kind of always been together. But Aiden is a playboy. He dates lots and lots of guys. He like always has a weekend date, and he's got that kind of reputation. And Harvard is just kind of getting onto the dating scene in this one, and Aiden has to deal with his feelings about Harvard starting to date. And when Harvard's first like real relationship kind of falls through, he confides in Aiden, and they kind of decide to fake date. But it's not fake dating for Aiden, because Aiden has these feelings for Harvard. So I was really interested in that storyline, and this particular book did not conclude that for me. So I feel like I do need to read the next one. While I did enjoy this one, I thought it was really entertaining. Like I said, I really enjoyed Harvard and Aiden's storyline. I didn't enjoy the other 2 storyline as much. One of the characters is Japanese. I believe his name is Seiji. And the way he was narrated, because I did listen to this one on audio, he seemed very stereotypical. And the way that his lines came out seemed very stereotypical, and I did not enjoy that. But there's a part of me that thinks he's on the spectrum in some way, shape, or form, It's not clear, and it's not said that he is, but just some of the things he says, some of the situations he gets himself into, and how he responds to those situations seems like he could be. So there was a little bit of confusion there for me, but like I said, I felt like he was portrayed very stereotypically, and I didn't enjoy that. So even though I gave this one 3 stars, I will continue to the next one because I want to see what happens between Aiden and Harvard. But this one was just okay for me. Now, that being said, outside of manga, I do find that contemporary romance stories aren't as enjoyable for me. So that could be a reason why this particular one didn't work for me as well either. I definitely enjoy contemporary romance stories better in manga or TV shows or movies. But for whatever reason, contemporary romance stories do not work as well and are not as enjoyable for me in novel form. So, yeah, it was enjoyable. I'll be continuing to the next one, but it was just okay. My second to the last 3-star read of the month was The Pet Detective Agency by Noji. This one was about a detective agency, but basically one of the partners in the detective agency has this uncanny ability of attracting animals. So a lot of the cases that they get have to do with missing animals. And because he can attract these animals, it's easier to find lost animals because they'll just come right to him, right? The underlying storyline of this is that the partner that has these abilities was found by the other partner of the agency, and that's kind of how they got together and started working these agency. But there is kind of an underlying romance on behalf of the partner that has the abilities. But this is also an age gap romance. And it doesn't seem like the younger partner's feelings are reciprocated in any way for the most part in this volume. So there are some questionable things that come up in here in regards to non-consent and things like that, starting on page 1. For the most part, the cases that they get into were fun. They were fluffy. They weren't anything like super intriguing until I would say the last one. And I wasn't really connected to this pair at all. I didn't really feel like there was a connection between them either, besides the fact that they worked together and that one of them had a crush on the other one. It definitely seemed to me like the older partner wasn't ever going to reciprocate those feelings. I just never got the feeling that they would end up together. So I think this one could have benefited from a few more pages, maybe a few more cases or a few more scenes with our characters together. But this one just kind of fell short for me. It was entertaining, but I wouldn't reread this one in the future. I'm glad that it was available for my library to borrow, though. And then my last 3-star read was also one I borrowed from the library on the Hoopla app, and that is The Snake Who Loved the Sparrow by Enna Natsuo. I think that's how you pronounce the name. So this one is basically about a sparrow who was in the woods and comes up upon a snake and basically gets freaked out because sparrows are snake food. And they kind of have a little small argument. And the snake says, you better get out of the way. Don't you hear that? And it turns out that there is a stampede nearing, and the sparrow has gotten himself into a situation where he can't fly away. So the snake saves him, to which the sparrow freaks out, and the snake gets his feelings hurt. And this story basically follows the relationship that grows between the snake and the sparrow. So basically, the predator falling in love with his prey kind of thing. This one would have been better if there wasn't so much exploration into the genitalia of said animals. That's all I'm going to say on that one. It was a sweet love story, though. It was a sweet love story. There was a scene where I thought it was going to be a heartbreaking story, but it ended up being a really sweet story, and I would have much preferred this one if it ended clean. If it was just a clean story and they didn't have any of that extra spicy stuff inside, but it was okay. And yeah, I would have preferred it if it was clean. So that is all of the 3-star things that I had read during the month. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I had a really great reading month. I read a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have. It definitely helped that my library had a lot of Tokyo Pop titles available through Hoopla, because it saved me from having to buy volumes that I really wasn't sure that I would be interested in rereading. And in fact, a lot of the volumes that I ended up reading, I probably wouldn't purchase. I think for the most part, only 2 of the titles that I ended up borrowing from the library I will be purchasing for my at-home library. So yeah, a really great way to save some money there. Definitely check your library's Hoopla offering to see if they offer manga. I know mine recently has started to provide Denpa titles. Before it was just Tokyo Pop and a few Dark Horse titles as far as manga goes. But yeah, now there's some Denpa titles, so that's great too. And they just keep adding more. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the selection looks like for next year's Manga Pride Readathon. I had a great time with the Manga Pride Readathon. I got 3 bingos, and I just couldn't manage that blackout. I probably could get another bingo if I rearranged a couple things that I had put on the board early to other blocks, but I'm happy with my results for the bingo board as I was just filling it out as I read. And so that's what I do every year, and I'm happy with that. So it was a great time as always. Thanks to Bazaar and Dylan and Rachel for hosting again this year. Looking forward to next year already. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say for the month. So let me know down in the comments below what your highest and lowest rated reads of the month were. I would really love to know. Did you participate in any readathons? And if you did, which ones were they? And how did you do? And if nothing else, and you'd just like to let me know that you were here, if you could leave me a rainbow emoji down in the comments below, that would be greatly appreciated and would really help me out. And that will do it for me today. So I hope you're all doing great. I hope you're all safe and healthy. And until next time, take care and smile always. Bye.